It's time for Mr. Fundamental!
Presented by no one.
Coming off an NBA championship, the LA Lakers are in a weird position, where only 4 of their regular rotational members are under contract next season. 5 if you include AD signing the max. This could be both a good and bad thing, since the Lakers could potentially upgrade their roster, but also possibly mess up what they have. Fortunately, the Lakers' play style and their star power makes it easier to replicate their success and find affordable replacements. A quick look at where they're standing heading into the offseason. They have $68 million in guaranteed salaries, with an addition of around $20 million factoring in the player options. AD is definitely going to turn down his player option, so I've included him in the cap hold section. The Lakers have 2 exceptions, the mid-level exception of $9 million and just over $3.5 million for the biannual exception. What they need is a third scoring option, preferably a guard, replacing any free agents who leave, and lots of shooting.
Guns. Lots of guns.
Now looking at their free agents, I'm pretty sure KCP and Rondo are going to get a raise and stay with the team. Brian Windhorst put it very well in terms of why KCP will stay with the Lakers. His situation is very similar to the Cavs in 2016 when they re-signed J.R. Smith. First off, KCP was better than Danny Green, so Rich Paul is going to ask for at least $15 million. That's a steep price for the Lakers, and KCP might not even get that sort of offer in free agency. The leverage with KCP is not that he's got a bigger offer elsewhere, but it's that the Lakers can't replace him. Rondo is a different situation. The Lakers have his early bird rights, and can offer him up to $10 million a year. Not only does that offer beat out other contenders' MLEs, but also keeps Rondo out of the hands of their rivals in the Clippers. As for the other free agents, or potential free agents, their return is still up in the air, so we're looking at replacements or potential upgrades that are within their reach. Looking at their big man depth first, I think one of Dwight or McGee is going to stay. If one of them leaves, Nerlens Noel will be a great option to replicate that two-way rim-running ability. He's been a backup to Steven Adams for the past 2 years and played really well in that role. Whether the Lakers keep him in that role or give him a promotion, it won't be hard to see him replicating what McGee does. Not only is Noel younger, but he's also more comfortable switching on the perimeter as well, and that would come in handy. Noel is due for a raise compared to his minimum salary, but still within the Lakers' price range, and playing for a contender is hard to pass up. If Dwight Howard doesn't return, I think Aaron Baines would be a good replacement. He's probably the closest comparison in terms of size and physicality. While Baines can't replicate Howard's shot blocking, rebounding, and above the rim finishing, he can space the floor and play great positional defense. His skill set allows the Lakers to add another shooter on the floor without sacrificing size and defense. Baines doesn't score a lot in the paint, but he's still a handful inside, whether it's boxing out or sealing off his defender. He doesn't block a lot of shots, but he's mastered the verticality that Vogel preaches. When he was on the floor with the Suns, opponents had less shot attempts in the paint. Assuming the Lakers still have a rim-running big on the roster, Baines would be a nice change of pace. He might take up a huge chunk of the MLE, but his skill set is worthy of that cost compared to typical non-shooting bigs. Staying with this theme, Miles Turner will be a great target. He's a two-way floor spacer with some untapped offensive potential. He's been relegated to spot-up duties on the Pacers, but did flash a post game which the Lakers won't be afraid to use. Turner can replicate what Dwight and McGee has been doing for the Lakers, like rim protection and above the rim finishes, while also acting as a reliable shooter. In addition to what I said about Baines and his shooting, having a floor spacing center elevates the floor and production for the guards. The paint will be more open, with Turner pulling away the opposing big, making drives by Rondo, Caruso, or KCP much easier compared to Dwight or McGee manning the dunker spot. All this comes down to whether the Pacers are willing to move him, but the Lakers have the exact sort of package that they're looking for. An instant contributor in Danny Green, young pieces like Kuzma and Horton Tucker, any player who picks up their player option, and the 28th pick. I know some of you might be thinking that sending away most of their tradable pieces for a center is a bad use of resource, but I think Turner is worth the hassle. Taking a quick detour, if a trade with the Pacers happen, the Lakers should try and nab TJ McConnell as well. Rondo is still a flight risk, and the Lakers could use another playmaker. McConnell's best role is still the backup point, but he's been the lead guard for the tanking Sixers before. The spacing was poor, but he still performed pretty well. He's a good facilitator, finishes well at the rim, plays tough defense, and got a decent mid-range pull-up jumper. He doesn't have the 3-ball to play besides their stars, but has shown his ability to adapt when Simmons and Embiid made their debut. His $2.5 million contract is basically the same as Rondo's minimum salary last year, and and the Pacers have guards like Oladipo and Lamb returning from injury, and also Aaron Holiday who's waiting on the wings. So getting McConnell would be pretty easy. On a lesser scale, DeMarcus Cousins could provide a similar type of impact as Turner. I was quite high on him last year when the Lakers signed him. His injuries might have sapped him of his athleticism, but that brute strength, touch, and off-the-dribble skills will still beat up opposing benches. At the minimum, Cousins could replicate the offensive impact of Dwight and provide an impactful 10 to 20 minutes per game. It seems like the Lakers have the inside track of signing Cousins due to their signing last year and his ties with AD and Rondo during their short Pelican stint. He won't cost much either, making him a low-risk, high-reward target. There are plenty of affordable rim runners on the market, like Derek Favors, Tristan Thompson, and Hassan Whiteside. There are also cheaper and lesser options like Biyombo, Mahimi, and Henson. Because of the saturated market for bigs, the Lakers shouldn't spend too much of an exception on centers and use the rest to fill out other pressing needs. The Lakers need another shot creator in the backcourt, and what better to do than thinning your rival's depth and adding to yours? It's unlikely Reggie Jackson returns to the Clippers, and the Lakers could use his shooting and shot creation. He's rather streaky, and one of his biggest flaws was contract. That's no longer a problem, and his time with the Clippers last year showed how effective he can be when surrounded by premier talent. Jackson shouldn't command that much money, and giving him a chance to take revenge on Kawhi's comments might be hard to pass up. Jeff Teague might be the better option, since he's more consistent with his playmaking and efficiency. He could be responsible for around 20 points a night, combining his scoring and playmaking. Similar to Jackson, his production in recent years weren't on par with his huge contract, but he was still an effective player as both a starter and an overqualified backup. The Lakers might need to use most or all of their MLE to acquire him, but I can see him making an impact like George Hill does on the Bucks, playing as a spark plug and spot starter. Alec Burks fits the bill of what the Lakers need. He just had a bounce-back season and provides that offensive spark off the bench. Only 38% of his twos were assisted for his career, but he's also a great fit beside their stars. He's a 36% shooter from deep, but his ability to create off the dribble would work well with Vogel's preference to run pin downs. Burks doesn't stand out much on the defensive end, but does have the size and length to be decent with the Lakers' backline. Burks is going to have quite a few suitors, but still within the Lakers' reach. A reliable third option is going to be tough to add in free agency with the Lakers' financial situation, but DJ Augustine could be a pretty good backup point. He's really different to all the guards on the current roster, a steady floor general with a pull-up jumper in his bag. He's not a lockdown defender, but has been the lead guard on a good defensive Magic team until last season when they prioritized Markelle Fultz's development. He's had a down year last season, but defenses still respect his jumper, and his 3-to-1 assist ratio would be welcome. My only out-of-the-box trade idea for a scorer is Terry Rozier. I know the Lakers have been linked with bigger names. I'll get to those later in the video. Rozier transitioned into a 2-guard next to Devontae Graham and took on backup point guard duties. This on and off ball role led to a breakout season, averaging 18-4-4 while shooting over 40% from deep. That's the type of player the Lakers need. A guard who can knock down threes next to their stars, but also carry their offense when they rest. Any type of deal will start with Danny Green for salary matching, and a combination of Kuzma, Horton Tucker, and a 28th pick. At just 26 years old, he is still relatively young, and a front-loaded contract is just icing on the cake. Moving on to shooters, I would love to see Bryn Forbes on the Lakers. He's a one-dimensional player, but his ability to hit threes, spotting up, or coming off screens would be huge for the Lakers. He's a career 40% shooter from deep on 4 attempts per game, but he takes what the defense gives him if they run him off the line, whether it's dumping it off to the big or pulling up from the mid-range. He isn't much of a defender, but he's competitive, and the Lakers have the defense to cover for him. It would be a steal if the Lakers could get him on a deal similar to Troy Daniels last season, but I'm not sure what his market is like. Bottom line, he'll be a good source of shooting, potential scoring, and his gravity could bend the defense even more. There are plenty of shooters out there, like Galloway, Moore, and Bellinelli, but I want to highlight Justin Holiday, especially if the Lakers trade Green or Bradley and KCP walks. A 3-and-D wing who could do more than just spotting up. His 3-ball is inconsistent, and last season was his first time hitting more than 36% of his threes. He's actually more comfortable coming off screens, either for 3 or curl inside the line for the mid-range jumper. Vogel loves those pin downs, and Holiday also brings the defensive versatility of guarding 1 through 4. Contenders are going to call up Holiday, but I don't see him getting that much of a raise compared to his $4 million deal last year. I know the Lakers are going to go hunting for bigger names, and I think CP3 is probably the most obtainable target. But a lot of things will have to go their way, like players will need to pick up their player options, and the Thunder not getting better offers. Heel doesn't have much leverage with his Kings situation, and they're not pressed to trade him with his front-loaded contract, meaning he'll be more and more attractive every year. Oladipo and Holiday are just way out of the Lakers' price range, since their best tradable assets are Kuzma and a 28th pick. There are already rumors about getting Derrick Rose, which is why I didn't put him on this list. His inconsistent stroke is worrying in terms of his fit besides their stars, but he does fill a need. I just wouldn't want to part with Kuzma in that deal. I would prefer getting Schroeder, since he might be a better fit and a younger option, but the package is going to start with at least Green and Kuzma. While most of my selections don't provide a consistent third scoring option, like I've been discussing with DeAndre Page in the comments, they are potential replacements or upgrades to their flight risk free agents that will work well with or without a potential star trade. Let me know down below whether you agree with these selections or not. Comment down if I missed out on anything, or some underrated and realistic targets that the Lakers should pursue. A lot could change over the offseason, and one small trade in the NBA could cause a ripple effect across the league, so let's see how things turn out at the end of the offseason. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, drop a like down below, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.